Hey everybody, welcome back to HomeRecordingMadeEasy.com and here on my YouTube channel, and welcome to another installment of Questions and Coffee with David. This is where I'm answering all the questions that come in over the last couple of days in video format to help you make better music in your home studio. So if you'd like one of your questions answered in an upcoming segment of Questions and Coffee, please send your questions to info@HomeRecordingMadeEasy.com. That's info@HomeRecordingMadeEasy.com, and I'll be sure to include your question in one of the upcoming videos. So as of the recording of this video, we're getting anywhere from 10 to 15 questions a day. So if I don't answer your question right away, please be patient with me. I'm trying to provide these videos as a way to help, and it may take a couple of days, maybe almost a week, for me to get back to you in video format. If it is something really critical that you need to know right away, let me know that in the email and I'll try to respond in an email. But just please be patient because these segments are becoming very popular and lots of people are sending questions, and I think it's fantastic and I want you to keep sending them, but just be a little bit patient. Give me a little bit of time. I will get back to you and I will respond to your question either in email or this way in video format. So now that that's out of the way, if you like what you see in this video or anything else on my channel, please hit that subscribe button. It helps me out tremendously. Also, share my videos on your Facebook page and your other social media platforms, as that helps as well. Follow me on Facebook at facebook.com/HomeRecordingMadeEasy. Also go out to Twitter at HomeRecordingMadeEasy and follow me there as well. And be sure for all your training needs to head out to HomeRecordingMadeEasy.com and check out the Made Easy and the Quick Mix series, as those training products will absolutely help you make better mixes, better masters, and better recordings in your home studio, I promise. So in this video, we're going to answer 3 questions. So let's head on to question number 1. Okay, question number 1 comes from Brian, and Brian writes, "Hello David, been following you for a while. Thanks for your videos, very informative. I have a question about the install size of Studio One. On the PreSonus site, the hardware disk size lists 30 gigabytes. That seems extremely large to me. Is this the size of Studio One software or only the additional content? I have a very fast and expensive SSD drive and only 40 gigs left of space. Thanks, Brian." Well, thanks, Brian, for writing in. I appreciate you following me, and I'm glad the videos are helping. Yes, the 30 gigs that they list on the PreSonus site is for all the additional content, which includes the loops and the software VSTs and those kinds of things. The actual program Studio One is nowhere near that size. I don't know the exact size, to be completely honest with you, but it's nowhere near 30 gigs. My guess, if it's a couple of gigabytes, that would probably be a lot, but you can double check. But yes, 30 gigabytes is all the additional content, which again, it includes all the different loops and software libraries and so on and so forth. So I hope that helps. If you have an SSD drive with 40 gigs left, you have plenty of space. What I would recommend is if you're going to download all the additional software like the loop libraries and such, you may want to do that to an external USB or Thunderbolt drive. It doesn't have to be an SSD necessarily, but that's probably preferable. And hard drives are so inexpensive today in the big scheme of things. That's probably the best way to go. So you should be okay with just downloading Studio One to your computer and all the other additional content to an external hard drive. So I hope that answers your question, Brian. Thanks once again for writing in. Now let's head on to question number 2. Okay, question number 2 comes from Larry, and Larry writes in, "Enjoyed and have learned a great deal from your tutorials on PreSonus gear. I have a couple of questions. Is there a way to feed a mix that you have in Studio One 3 directly to the Studio Live 16.4.2 AI mixer? I know it's normally done with Capture. Second, I plan to purchase a new laptop and wanted to know your thoughts on Mac versus PC. Processors have gotten a lot better on PCs lately, but it's hard to find a PC with FireWire. Thanks, Larry." Well, Larry, thanks for writing in. So you have a 2-part question. First part of your question is, yes, you can feed a mix through Studio One back through your Studio Live. Now, you have the 16.4.2 AI. I have the Series 3, Studio Live Series 3, Series 3 mixer, but I'm sure they're done the same way. I don't have your mixer in front of me, but I used to own an old 16.4.2. So the way you do it basically is on your mixer, there's either going to be a FireWire button or a USB button on the mixer itself per channel, where you're going to go in and you're going to make sure that you're routing on each channel in your mixer. You want to make sure that either the FireWire return button is enabled or the USB button is enabled, depends on what's on that mixer. Check the manual, you can absolutely do that. Then in Studio One, you have to go to your output settings tab in the preferences window, and you have to make sure that each one of your tracks that you have in Studio One, and let's say you have 10 tracks, for example, you can have tracks 1 through 10. You want to make sure there's an output for each one of those tracks that correspond with the board. So for example, if you have a kick, snare, hi-hats on tracks 1, 2, and 3 in Studio One, you would create an output in Studio One, a mono output for on channel 1, channel 2, channel 3 for kick, snare, hi-hats. And then if you enable the FireWire or USB return button on the board, then the kick drum, the snare drum, and the hi-hat track in this example would come back in through those faders on Studio One. Now on the AI mixer, and again, I'm not fully sure because I don't have that particular mixer. I thought that was a DAW surface control, or maybe that was the next series of mixers after the AI. I'm not really sure. You may want to consult with the PreSonus website. I know one of their mixers currently, before the Series 3 mixers, actually control Studio One as a surface control. And then if that's the case with your mixer and you're just not aware of it, the one I just told you is a little bit overkill and you really don't need to do that. It should be a little bit more simplistic. The best thing for you to do is just go out to the PreSonus website, download the manual and read it. But in any event, that's how you would do it if it isn't a surface control. You want to make sure that you have your FireWire or USB return on the mixer enabled per channel, and you want to make sure you route each one of the channels in Studio One to that output, and it should be just fine. Now keep in mind, if you only have 16 faders, unless you can page over on that mixer to another bank of 16, you're only going to be able to route out of Studio One 16 channels, if that makes sense. If you have any more questions after trying some of these tips, shoot me another email and I'll try to help you. But that's basically how you do it. So hope that answers your question, Larry. Thanks again for writing in. Oh, and then secondly, you wanted to know about Mac versus PC. Well, I'm a Mac guy. I've been a Mac guy for since about 2008. I used to use a PC way back in the day before I even used Studio One on Cubase, and it was nothing but problems. But you're right, PCs have gotten a lot better. The processing power has gotten a lot better over the years, but I'm not too familiar with it. The problem that I've always had with PCs is not so much the processor itself. It's always the Windows platform has always been a pain in the rear, to say the least, and they were used to be very unstable. So I recommend Mac. Now, however, I know lots of people that use PC that have excellent luck with it. So it all depends. The other reason why I use Mac is because my whole network and ecosystem, if you will, is all Mac based. All my computers are Mac. I have an iPhone, iPads, I have Apple Watch. I'm an Apple guy. So what's nice about Mac is if you own other peripherals or other tablets and other mobile devices, everything kind of syncs up together. And that's really, really nice with the Mac system. So you may want to consider that as well. If you own other Apple devices, you may want to get a Mac just so you can keep everything inside of its ecosystem. If you don't, or if that's not important to you, Macs are going to be more expensive for sure. But in my experience, they tend to be more stable. They tend to have, they're a lot less susceptible to viruses and those kinds of things. But again, I'm also speaking from a position where I haven't used PC in many, many years. And actually, I get a lot of PC questions from a lot of my students about PC, and I'm thinking about buying maybe an entry-level PC and putting a version of Studio One on it just so I have something to help from an instruction point of view. But if I had to, if budget wasn't really an issue and you were looking to buy a really good PC, a really good computer, I would lean towards Mac. The other thing you want to consider about with Mac, if you do any kind of video editing at all, Mac tends to be a lot better than that, than PC in my experience. But anyway, I would say Mac. But it really depends. You may want to go out to the PreSonus forum and you may want to ask some questions. There's a lot of PC users that have great luck that might be able to steer you in a direction with a PC. So hope that answers your question, Larry. Again, thanks for writing in. And now let's head on over to the next question, question number 3. Okay, last question for this video comes from Tim, and Tim writes in, "Hello David, hope this email finds you well. First of all, let me say I've purchased all of your products and really do thank you for taking the time to create them for those of us using Studio One. It's been a great help and well worth the money." Well, thanks so much, Tim. I really do appreciate that, and I'm glad the videos are helping. That's why I'm creating them. Question, I am struggling with how to create drum sessions in Easy Drummer and then applying them to already mixed sessions with guitar, bass, etc. I can only figure out how to create the drums, then build my session around them. After the fact, if I drop my drum sessions into a mix afterwards, the timing never matches up and it sounds completely out of whack. Am I doing something wrong? Do you have any videos to explain how to do this? Thanks in advance, and please keep up the good work. Faithful follower, Tim. Well, Tim, I really do appreciate you following me, and I appreciate all your support. Yeah, this is something that that I've gotten this question a couple of times. So basically, you've already created a track. It's already been played, it's already been recorded, and now you want to add the drums after the fact. And that is a problem 9 out of 10 times. So let me explain. So if usually you lay down the drums first, or you record all the other parts to a click track to make sure you're in time. If you've recorded those other instruments to a click track, and if they're on the grid, you can line up a drum track to it and everything will sound in time. But in your case, it sounds like everything is out of whack, which means you probably just recorded it freeform and you didn't record to a click track, which is totally fine. That's how I record most of my music. But I always lay down the drums first. So when you try to lay drums on top of a track that's not already quantized to the grid, it's never going to line up. It's a very difficult way to do it. What I would suggest in the future is you have to record the drums first, or at the very least, if you're not sure what the drum patterns are going to be, at least you record to a click track. If you can record to a click track and keep all your other instrumentation in time, then dropping in the drums afterwards is usually not a problem. And that's what it sounds like you got going on here. So I don't have any fast down and dirty tricks on how to fix that, depending on how far out of time the rest of your tracks are. And that doesn't mean it doesn't sound good. It may sound like it's in time, but it probably is not on the grid and it's out of time. Lining up the drums is going to be nearly impossible. So my recommendation would be, in the future, record to a click track or drop in just kind of a basic groove from EZdrummer and record to that as kind of like a scratch track. And then once you got that down, then you can go back and put in your drums after the fact and it'll do fine. Or the other thing you could do with EZdrummer, if you have a MIDI controller hooked up to it, you can play drums on your MIDI controller keyboard through the EZdrummer program. And if you can do that, kind of, if you can play little drum patterns yourself without using predetermined grooves, you can actually play to the music that you already recorded. And therefore, your drums will match up with, because you won't play perfectly in time, so it will match up to the music. That's another way to do it. And as a matter of fact, we have a new Made Easy series coming out probably in the next 4 to 5 weeks, which will be right around mid-April 2017, called MIDI Drums Made Easy, which is all about drum programming. And in the first section of that series, we do exactly that. We actually play the drums on a MIDI controller to a pre-recorded piece of music. So that might help you. Keep your eye out for that. Again, that's MIDI Drums Made Easy. It's coming out mid-April 2017. If you're not, you must be already, because you're a faithful follower. If you're not on my VIP email list, go out and sign up for the VIP email list right on the homepage of homerecordingmadeeasy.com, and you'll get notification when that's coming out, and that should be out soon. And I would highly recommend that you pick that up, because it sounds like you work with MIDI drums, and that will probably help you with this problem. So I was just thinking about that as we were talking through this. So I hope that helps you, Tim. Again, any more questions, feel free to write in, and I'll be sure to help you. And again, thank you for following. I really do appreciate it. So that's it for this week's installment of Questions and Coffee with David. Once again, please hit that subscribe button. Please go out to Facebook and Twitter and follow me there, and head out to homerecordingmadeeasy.com and check out all the products I have over there for training. It'll really help you, I promise you. And until the next installment of Questions and Coffee with David, this has been David Vignola with homerecordingmadeeasy.com. Thank you once again for joining me. Enjoy your cup of coffee, as I will, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.